Thank you all for jumping on today. We are fortunate enough to have a external presenter. This is probably something you guys have always enjoyed from the CTL. So I want to welcome today Mr. Leonard Geddes from the Learn Well Project.
Hopefully challenge your thinking to think about academic work in a new way to hopefully empower your students. I'll say that again, empower your students to do higher quality academic work. Yes, you all are the audience. You all are the ones who I'm talking to right now. But I'm hoping that I can show you some things that will shine through you and will allow you to enlighten your students. Many people know me for metacognition, which I'm sure you may be familiar with the term. Most people narrowly define metacognition as thinking about thinking. I am going to introduce a broader conceptualization of metacognition and show you how to practically integrate it into your class. And more importantly, how to activate your students' latent metacognitive skills. My real expertise lies in understanding how students do academic work. I've spent about 20 plus years going around to campuses exploring what are students actually doing when they leave the classroom. I like the escape room experience because I've been setting up these sessions all throughout the country to go to different schools, different institutions and organizations to lead institutions and organizations and educators and students on this escape room experience. Escaping transition traps, an escape room experience. Hope y'all are ready. I'm looking forward to this experience. So first, let me introduce my book. It's called How to Successfully Transition Students into College from Traps to Triumph. Now, this book is based upon 3 types of traps that I recognize that successful high school graduates fall into when they go to college. Those traps are a structural trap, a functional trap, and a cognitive trap. The thing to know about these traps is that if you think about your students, throughout their pre-college years, they develop 3 fundamental relationships with academic environments. One is a relationship with the environment in which they've learned. That's the structural trap that leads them to the structural trap. 2, a relationship with the educators who teach them. That leads to a functional trap. 3, a relationship with the work that they've undertaken. That leads to the cognitive traps. These relationships form the bedrock of students' academic work orientation, shaping how they learn and also what they learned. The challenge is that when students leave high school and they go to college, they bring with them a set of perspectives, expectations, and practices that worked well for them in high school. First, let me show you how these transition traps unfold. When students arrived this August at Delaware State University, they were not trapped. However, they started to experience what I call transition challenges. Usually within the first 1 to 5 weeks, students experience transition challenges. And these are nondescript events that occur below the radar. These issues are primarily confined to the classroom. Think about those students that in the first few days or the first couple of weeks of class, you haven't really assigned any specific activity, so they believe, I don't have anything to do. How do I know this? Because I've been to college campuses and I'll approach students and ask them, hey, what are you doing for class right now? And they will tell me things like, oh, we don't have anything to study right now. We're just kind of building towards something. They don't realize it, but these students are already in transition challenges. Over the next 6 to 9 weeks, students move from transition challenges to transition troubles. Transition troubles are characterized by a series of unequal performances, and then it begins to extend the troubles beyond the classroom. So think about during this time. In a typical class, a student might have had some homework, they might have had some quizzes, and then they might have had their first or maybe even their second assessment. Maybe it's an exam, maybe it's a paper, however you tend to assess your students. By unequal performances, what I mean is this, and you can let me know if you've seen this. I know some of you are not visible on the screen, but I'll open the chat feature if you can. I'll be checking to see if this resonates with you, or you can give me a thumbs up if this resonates with you. Students may do relatively well on homework, and then they may do well on quizzes, but then they may completely do poorly on the exam. Let me know if you had that happen to your students.
One of the things I see a lot, what really spoke to me, I think, was when you talked about how Students do the homework, they do the quizzes, they take the test, and they're like, why did I fail the test?
That's a sign of transition troubles. The reason that happens, I see some thumbs up, great. The reason that happens is because students are looking to the homework, their success on the homework and their success on the quiz as affirmation that they're preparing the right way. And so if they do well on that homework, that's a marker in their mind that I'm doing things correctly. And then if they get a quiz and they do relatively well on that, then they get another marker saying I'm doing well, which makes them feel all the more prepared for the assessment. But what I'm going to show you toward the end of our presentation is that what we're assessing students on is different from the quiz or homework material. So that's why students run into transition troubles. Thank you for that feedback. I saw those agreements and the thumbs up for this. Now, finally, we move into transition traps. And this happens later in the semester. And this is when students have exhausted all solutions. They've tried to study harder. They've maybe been to you for office hours. Maybe they've been to the learning center. Maybe they've worked with a tutor. They've worked with other people, and none of that seems to work. And the reason is because there are some fundamental metacognitive alignment things that they need to do to get out of these transition traps. And many of them, unfortunately, don't know how to get out of them. And many institutions are working hard, but they're not necessarily working strategically or with the foresight of knowing what these transition traps are. So in weeks 10 through 15, this is when apathy starts to set in. Students start to, I don't really care. And apathy, I always say, masks inability. And apathy, I always say, masks inability. Meaning that when students try, but they don't succeed, and they try again, and they don't succeed, they have to reconcile that experience. And the emotionally safest way to reconcile that experience is to just divorce yourself from it, to distance yourself emotionally and say, I don't really care about this anymore. And at this point, you might see students start investing themselves into other extracurricular activities, so on and so forth. And the reason is because they've exhausted their solutions. And so that's how transition traps unfold over time.